Hello, this is J183. This is my prediction video for the F1 2018 season, which is starting next weekend, which I'm very excited for. It's been too long since the last race, and 2018 getting underway this week, and I'm looking forward to it an awful lot. So this is my predictions. I'm going to run through a lot of them. I'm going to do constructors, and for each team, which driver will finish higher in the championship, and then also the top of the championship, top three, and the bottom three in the drivers' championship as well, and then just some other ones which might come true but might not. So yeah, let's get into my constructors predictions, and we'll work the way out from the bottom. And I think the bottom, like the backmarker teams, well, not backmarker, but the slowest teams on the grid will be between Sauber, Williams, and Toro Rosso. So I'm going to predict Sauber in 10th, just because they were last year. They were close to McLaren for the first half of the season, but then McLaren eventually got their act together and kind of beat them quite comfortably in the end. So Sauber last place. They've got obviously Leclerc and Ericsson. Ericsson, I think, isn't as bad as people make out, but I do think Leclerc will beat him in the championship. Leclerc will pick up, I reckon, about like less than 10 points, but I reckon he'll get about 7 or 8 points over the course of the season. Ericsson will be lucky to pick up 1 or 2, but I'd be surprised if he does, to be honest. So yeah, that is Sauber in last place. The budget is pretty bad, and obviously the Alpha backing won't really come into effect until next season, I reckon, when they might not be last anymore. If they can get some good progress this year, and Leclerc, if they actually hold on to him for the 2019 season, which I'd be surprised about, he will do well then, I reckon, for Sauber. But that's not time to talk about now. Let's go on to the next team, which I put Williams in 9th place, because I don't even know, they've just gone backwards so much since like 2014, the third best team, just podiums all the time with Bottas and Massa doing really well, like 2 actual good drivers. Now they've got Stroll and Sirotkin. I can't really judge Sirotkin that bad, but someone who spent like, I think, 3 or 4 years in F2 without getting that close to winning it can't be all that. So I'm not expecting much from Williams drivers. Stroll was absolutely ruined by Massa last year, and it was only carried by a few good results in like the podium in Baku, which was extremely lucky for Stroll. But fair play to him, he got it, he didn't bottle it. So yeah, Williams, their car is just going backwards. The testing was pretty awful for him, and the drivers aren't up to much, I don't think. So yeah, I'd be surprised. I reckon Sirotkin will beat Stroll over the season, because he's got more to prove, really. Stroll's just there to fund him, really. I mean, Sirotkin kind of is as well, but I'm going to put Sirotkin to beat Stroll in the championship. And 8th place, I've got for Toro Rosso, the last of the slowest teams. Toro Rosso with the Honda engine, of course, and it wasn't bad in testing, but it also wasn't bad in terms of reliability, but we haven't really seen it on proper runs yet, because well, obviously it's just testing, you can't really read too much into it. And yeah, I still don't think it'll be a quick engine at all, and I reckon Gasly will ruin Hartley, I hope anyway, because I'm a Gasly fan. So I don't think Hartley's up to much. He's a bit old now in terms of the kind of drivers Toro Rosso normally have in their team, and Gasly is a lot younger, has a point to prove after last year. Neither of them scored points at the end of last season, but it was kind of a new season, like they weren't used to the car or anything like that. So they've both kind of on a fresh slate this year, and Toro Rosso, the car normally starts off pretty well and then just doesn't develop in the season at all. So yeah, I've got him at 8th place. I reckon he'll get a few points. Gasly will probably get, I reckon, up to about 20 points, and Hartley maybe not that many, because he's not really an F1 driver in my eyes anyway. He's done a lot of World Endurance Championship and stuff, and he's just been drafted in because they hated Kvyat basically, and Sainz was getting sick of him. So yeah, Toro Rosso kind of had to compromise with Hartley being in the car. I'm pretty sure they'd have preferred to keep Sainz for another year. So on to the midfield cars. I think the midfield will be like McLaren and Renault, obviously, both to try and make strides forward, and then Force India and Haas, who were quite surprisingly good in testing. So I've gone for 7th place with the Haas team, and I reckon Grosjean is very solid. He's having an eye on that Ferrari seat definitely this season. Like, I reckon Ferrari or Raikkonen probably will retire at the end of the year, and they need a new driver. It'll probably go to Grosjean, I think. He only joined the Haas team really to go into that Ferrari seat the next season, so he's got a point to prove. Just try and keep outperforming Magnussen as he did last season. Magnussen caused a lot of incidents and had a few good results, but not that many. Grosjean did a lot better than him. He got that 6th in Austria and was on for like 7th in Australia as well, but his car broke down, I think. I can't remember, it was like a year ago now, basically. They finished 2nd on 2 of the days, so I'm pretty surprised by Haas, and I reckon they'll do pretty well this year. But 7th is where I've put them. They'll be outdeveloped, and the other teams have more money and more experience of being a midfield team. So yeah, Haas in 7th place. I reckon Grosjean will beat Magnussen pretty comfortably in the championship. And then 6th place, I've actually gone for Force India, which is a bit surprising maybe, but their testing was just awful. Like, Ocon seems to think the car's good, Perez doesn't think the car's good, and if they're together on track, they'll probably just crash and cost each other lots of points, as they did last year, quite a lot. But a team that's finished 4th place twice in a row in the championship, it's a bit out there to put them in 6th, but I just think that's where they're going to finish, to be honest. Like, Renault and McLaren are much faster than them over the course of the winter testing, and it's going to be really close between the two drivers. They've probably got they're very solid drivers, but like the car just isn't behind them, it seems, through testing. So I've put them in 6th place. It might be finally time for them to like realise that they've been getting these 4th places through the other teams messing up, but this year I don't think teams like Renault and McLaren are going to mess up that much, and that's why I put Force India in 6th. But I do reckon that Ocon will beat Perez, and then Perez will probably leave and maybe go to Haas or something like that when Grosjean leaves. But that'll be a driver's predictions for 2019, which will come later in the year, I'm sure. And yeah, that's why I put Force India in 6th. And next up is McLaren, who have gone 5th place. And they're making good strides. Their reliability wasn't very good, but there wasn't like a consistent problem. It was just loads of little problems really through testing. And they've got Alonso and Van Dorn in the car, which is solid lineup. And I reckon Alonso, he might scrape a podium somewhere. I'll probably get a few top 5s in the championship. So I've put McLaren in 5th. They're making progress again now after they've ditched Honda back to Renault. And they're going to try and do well, but I reckon Renault will just edge them out and go into 4th place. But on McLaren, I do think Alonso will beat Van Dorn pretty comfortably, which I think everyone will expect rather. And yeah, that's how I put them in 5th, with Alonso and Van Dorn doing all right. But next up is Renault in 4th place. Hulkenberg and Sainz is the 2nd best driver on the grid, I think, and I reckon they're going to do really well this season. Like they had the 4th fastest car for the second half of last season, but the reliability wasn't there and the driver wasn't there in Jolyon Palmer, but now he's gone. Sainz is very good. I'm a Hulkenberg fan. I absolutely love him. So hopefully Hulkenberg can get his first podium, which I kind of want him to. Well, I desperately want him to, but I hope he does as well, realistically. And yeah, that's put 4th place. Their progress last season was very good. Since they came back as a manufacturer, they've been moving up the table quite consistently. They came 6th last year, just ahead of Toro Rosso. And I reckon they'll keep on the stride up the table this year in 4th place for Renault, and they've got the best livery as well. That's another reason why I hope they do well. And I really like the 2 drivers of Hulkenberg and Sainz, but I do reckon Hulkenberg will win out in that battle because Sainz just makes a lot of mistakes. I don't think people realise, especially in the Toro Rosso last season, he just made loads of crashes like stupidly, like Bahrain, Canada, Japan, stuff like that. Like people didn't realise he was actually making quite a lot of crashes just because Kvyat was making more. And I reckon now Hulkenberg is like one of the most consistent drivers on the grid in terms of like points. So Sainz might get a bit shown up, but I reckon it'll be very close between them. Sainz probably got the slightly better pace, but Hulkenberg's got the more consistency. So I'm going to put Hulkenberg to beat out Sainz in that battle for the Renault drivers. And then the top 3 obviously is Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari. And I've actually predicted them in that order. So Mercedes to win it, I don't think that's really questionable at all. Like they've won it the last 4 years now, since 2014 and onwards. They've won the constructors, so I've gone for that again. And yeah, not really surprised. Hamilton will obviously beat Bottas. I don't think anyone will question that. And then second, I've got Red Bull because their car was actually very solid and no reliability issues, or major issues anyway, through testing, which we saw last year. And they've not really been talking themselves up like they normally do. And they obviously launched that really nice livery, but then didn't actually use it ever. So that was nice of them to tease us all with that nice livery that wasn't actually used. But then I reckon they'll come second because they've got the best driver on the grid of Ricciardo and Verstappen. I reckon Verstappen will win out that battle between them two, and Verstappen will really do a title charge this season. Because Red Bull, if they can keep developing, they might end up as the fastest car for some weekends in this year, especially like tracks like Monaco or Hungary. I reckon they could really like take the fight to Mercedes and maybe even like get 1-2s and stuff there with Verstappen and Ricciardo both doing absolutely brilliantly at the throughout points of last season, with Ricciardo obviously winning that race in Baku and getting consistent podiums in the first half, and then Verstappen really being Hamilton's closest challenger through the second half of the season in some races like Japan and Malaysia and stuff. So yeah, they're really impressing me and impressing everyone last season, and hopefully Red Bull can really make a challenge for the Drivers' Championship this year for those two drivers, because I do quite like them both, but Verstappen is one of my favourites on the grid. And then third, I've gone for Ferrari. They're just going to be let down by Raikkonen so bad, and their car wasn't that good in testing. I think like you've seen since 2014 they've had an off year and an on year. So like 14 they were awful, 15 they were pretty good, like Vettel got a few wins, 16 they were awful again, 2017 obviously they were really good and did really well really. With Vettel like quite close to the championship, he didn't win it in the end, but what can you do, he was quite unlucky and quite a few mistakes there. And then Raikkonen, I just don't expect much at all. Like I've one of the predictions later in my video involves Raikkonen, but we'll get onto that in a little bit of time. And then Ferrari, yeah, so this should be an off year really, so I've gone from third, like no man's land really. I think Vettel will get a win or two, but I don't think he'll do as well as they did last season. And then onto the Drivers' Championship predictions, I'll just do the top 3 and the bottom 3 because I think that's the important bits. Obviously I told you which driver I think will win in each team, and yeah, the top 3 of the championship, I've gone for Hamilton to win it. again, I don't want him to win it. I don't like Hamilton at all, but I think he will. He's got the best car, and he's one of the best drivers on the grid. So then second place, I've gone for Verstappen, the driver I would personally prefer winning the championship, but I've gone for him second. Just Hamilton's got a little bit more experience and consistency than Verstappen, and I think they'll be very close on pace some races, and I hope we get some good battles between them. And in third place, I've gone for Bottas because he's actually got quite solid now. I didn't rate him at all at the start of last season, but through the season he's learned a lot, and now he's been in the whole winter with Mercedes. Obviously last year he came from Williams quite late in the winter, and he's been with Mercedes the whole winter now, so he can get used to the team. His second season, he's quite got a point to prove, because if he doesn't do well, he probably will get replaced by someone like Ricciardo for 2019. But Bottas, with a point to prove, I reckon he will prove it and get quite a few wins and finish third in the championship ahead of the likes of Vettel and Ricciardo. And then the bottom three, I've gone for Ericsson last. He's just, yeah, he's reasonably quick on pace, but I just don't think he'll get a point at all, really. He might get one or two, I'd be surprised though. And as 19th, I've gone for Stroll. Just, he's awful, let's be honest. Got lucky podium, got smashed by Massa, and Massa then was getting smashed by Bottas the year before. So if Stroll is way worse than Bottas, then he must be terrible, because like Bottas in those days wasn't that impressive really. And then 18th, I've actually gone for Hartley, because obviously I've said I don't think he's cut out for F1. He's more of an endurance driver. So yeah, I've gone for 18th place. I reckon he'll get points, but I just don't think he'll do well. And that's mainly down to the fact that I think Sorokin and Leclerc will get a few good results here and there, which is why Hartley will be down there. Then I've got some like wild card prediction sort of things. If these come true, I would be reasonably surprised with some of them. But so my first one is that the Halo, the new head protection device, will influence in a big crash. So like someone will have a big crash, the Halo will protect them, and then everyone will stop hating it. I kind of hope that happens, because like it's happened now. Can we just accept it? I don't mind that much how the Halo looks. It's just the onboard cameras look a bit terrible. But yeah, it's just like, accept it, move on, stop complaining. It's not that bad. If it saves a life, it's worth it. Like if it ever saves a life, it's worth doing for this Halo then. And then my next prediction is that Lando Norris will replace Alonso when Alonso does what he wants and goes to do another championship or something. And so I reckon we'll come back maybe in for one race like we saw last year with Button coming in Monaco. And when Lando Norris does come in, I reckon he'll outperform Van Dorn in that race that he does, which would be quite surprising. I don't really rate Van Dorn that highly in terms of compared to Alonso. And Lando Norris, I do quite think he'll do really well when he actually finally gets into F1. And I think he's in F2 this season with Prima Racing, I think. That might be wrong, but yeah, hopefully he does well. Hopefully maybe wins F2 and then gets a seat for 2019. And then my third prediction is that there will be a title decider in Abu Dhabi. Whether it's a close title decider, we don't know, but I reckon Verstappen will be close enough to Hamilton for it to go down to Abu Dhabi in the last race, which we desperately need, because we had that one in 2016, but then before that, the last real title decider was 2012. It's just been too long. So yeah, hopefully that happens in Abu Dhabi. And obviously it's not a great track, but if there's a title decider there, it can be a bit exciting. And then my last prediction, which is very much out there, is that Raikkonen doesn't get a podium at all season, I don't think. And but the two Renault drivers will get a podium each, or a few podiums, with Hülkenberg and Sainz doing bits in that Renault. Hopefully they do anyway, because I do like the pair of them quite a lot. And Raikkonen is just a waste of space in Ferrari these days. So we only got about, I think, 4 or 5 last season, I think. And this season Ferrari is worse, and Raikkonen's obviously a year older and a year less motivated and a year closer to retiring. So I reckon it'll be last season, and going out with a whimper really if he does retire, which would be a bit of a shame because he has had a good career. So that's going to be the end of my predictions. Hope you did enjoy. Comment below what you think your prediction's going to be. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more. This has been JY83, and I will see you next time.